Coming up on Network Africa. Senegal's ruling coalition loses absolute majority in Sunday's parliamentary elections. U.S. Ambassador to the United Nations, Linda Thomas-Greenfield's visit to Ghana to focus on food and security in the country. Plus, the Democratic Republic of Congo holds mass burial for 10 protesters killed during recent anti-UN demonstrations. Hello and welcome to the programme. I'm Tenyola Shubowale. We begin in Senegal, where the Electoral Commission says the country's ruling coalition has lost its comfortable majority in Parliament. In provisional results, President Macky Sall's coalition secured just 2 more seats than 2 allied opposition coalitions in a legislative election at the weekend. At 82 out of 165 seats, that left Benno Bokk Yakaar 1 shy of an absolute majority. However, main opposition coalition Yewi Askanwi has said it will not accept the outcome, citing alleged voting irregularities in the country's north. Opposition leader Ousmane Sonko says the ruling coalition will try to steal the results and urges supporters to defend the vote by all means. Well, staying with Senegal, the government has signed a peace deal with rebels from the country's southern province of Casamance, which could bring about an end to a decades-long conflict. The movement of democratic forces of Casamance has pledged to lay down its arms and work towards a permanent solution. The Senegalese President Macky Sall welcomed the agreement and thanked the President of Guinea-Bissau, Umaru Embalo, for mediating. A separatist insurgency by the MFDC has resulted in several thousand deaths since 1982, although the conflict was mostly dormant until Senegal launched a major offensive last year to drive out the rebels. And African nations are free to buy grain from Russia, but could face consequences if they trade in U.S.-sanctioned commodities such as Russian oil. This is coming from the U.S. ambassador to the United Nations, speaking at a news conference in the Ugandan capital, Kampala, after a meeting with President Yoweri Museveni. Mr. Museveni is a U.S. ally who has not criticized Russia's invasion of Ukraine and expressed sympathy with Moscow. She adds that if a country decides to engage with Russia where there are sanctions, then they stand the chance of having actions taken against them. Her trip comes a week after the Africa visit of Sergei Lavrov, the Russian foreign minister, who dismissed charges that his country's invasion of Ukraine is solely responsible for a dangerous food crisis in countries ranging from Somalia to South Sudan. Well, after her Uganda trip, Ambassador Thomas-Greenfield is now in Ghana on a 2-day visit. Ms. Thomas-Greenfield is delivering a speech on U.S. foreign policy on food security initiatives across Africa and the impact of the global food crisis caused by Russia's invasion of Ukraine. She'll be visiting markets and meeting smallholder farmers to assess the local resources and how best the U.S. can work with Ghana to alleviate food insecurity across the country. Currently, a similar project is in operation in the northern region. The ongoing war has disrupted global food and fertilizer supplies, affecting many countries, including Ghana, where food inflation has risen to a record 30%. Ms. Linda Thomas-Greenfield is also expected to meet President Nana Akufo-Addo and Foreign Minister to discuss regional security and Ghana's priorities at the UN Security Council. Well, for more on the UN ambassador's visit to Uganda, we have Alima Athumani, the VOA's correspondent in Uganda. Thank you so much for joining us on the program.
Thank you for having me.
So talk to us more about Thursday's news conference with the US UN ambassador.
So last evening, we waited after the U.S. Ambassadors, the representative for the U.S. ambassador's residence here in Kampala, and they got in at a few minutes past 8 p.m. And when Ambassador Greenfield came in, she quickly briefed us about how her meeting with President Museveni went. She described her meeting with President Museveni as frank and productive, saying they discussed solutions to food insecurity, the high energy costs. I mean, in Uganda currently, a liter of fuel is as high as $2, which was way less way back. And of course, she said they talked about supporting the refugee community in Uganda, and again announced a $20 million support to Uganda, in which she says we'll be going to especially food production in the country. Eventually, I think that was how she briefed us. And then eventually we had an opportunity to ask questions about how her meeting with President Museveni went.
Yeah, and being particular about her meeting with President Museveni, who is a U.S. ally that has not condemned or spoken against Russia on its invasion of Ukraine. How did that meeting go? Plus, is this likely to impact U.S.-Uganda relations?
I don't think so. Yes, I think President Museveni has said, even with the Russian foreign minister's visit, he said he's not here to choose sides. And he says this is a question that he's answered over and over again. He will never choose side when there is a fight amongst Western powers. And according to him, he says, I will only relate to people depending on the interests of Uganda, and that he has done. Well, come to yesterday's meeting with Ambassador Linda Greenfield. He again repeated the same thing. And actually, he did make a couple of tweets, and I'll read for you one tweet that I thought was quite important, especially considering now that the US has put sanctions on some of the products from Russia, especially oil, which, of course, many African countries are now feeling the pinch because of the high cost that has resulted into the high cost. And he said, first he says our position, sorry, I'll read this fast. He said, last evening, the U.S. ambassador to the United Nations, Her Excellency Linda Thomas Greenfield, called on me at State House in Entebbe. We had a good discussion. He described the meeting as a good discussion on regional matters of security and, of course, the economic hardships occasioned by the Ukraine-Russia war. Now, when we talk about the sanctions, President Museveni in particular tweeted again and said, we are also appealing to the US that if they really want to help Africa, they should consider separating us from the sanctions in a war where we are not participating. Yes, Africa is not participating in the Russia-Ukraine war, but we all know that, I think in every African country, food prices have gone high. Fertilizer prices have gone high. Fuel prices have gone high. And Africans, including ourselves, I'm sure when you go to the market right now to buy a meal or to buy tomatoes or onions, you're going to feel the pinch. And this is how much the Russia-Ukraine war has affected Africa.
And that leads me to quite an interesting question. How are Ugandans receiving this visit, especially amid the impact of the Russian invasion and so close to the Russian foreign minister's visit as well?
For them, they think, the U.S. has quickly sent an ambassador to Uganda, reason being Uganda has always been a U.S. ally. We all know that President Museveni is seen as, the man in the region, the one who is able to control or, try and make the region stable. We have a force. Uganda has a force in Somalia. Uganda was involved in the South Sudan conflict. So Uganda, I think, also sent some forces in the Central African Republic. Right now, Uganda has a force in the DRC. So you realize that everywhere there is a conflict, that you see that there's a hand by Uganda. And I think especially the US knows that Uganda is a strong ally if it needs to still have control in the region, in the Great Lakes region in particular. But also, you cannot take away the fact that Uganda has always gotten some of its ammunition from Russia. So I think, as the president said, I am going to deal with them depending on my interest, and he's done exactly that. But of course, Ugandans think that Ambassador Linda Greenfield coming to Uganda is just the US trying to rush up and and remind Uganda that you and us have a strong relationship, and we are here to cement that, which I think was also among the words that Ambassador Linda Greenfield did say. She said she was here to reaffirm and strengthen the relations between Uganda and South Sudan. Now, one thing that I found also interesting was that yesterday, Ambassador Linda Greenfield did mention that, in December, they will be holding the African Leaders Meeting, but also celebrate 60 years of their relation with Uganda. Now, when the Russian Foreign Affairs Minister was here, he also talked about soon they will be holding a meeting in which they will celebrate their relationship, their 60 years, celebrate a relationship with Uganda. So it looks like everyone is trying to impress President Museveni, and the way he's working this out is really working for him, because everyone looks to impress him and to try and make sure that he's on their side, even though publicly he says, I am not going to take sides.
Well, really interesting times. VOA Alima Athumani, thank you so much for the update.
Thank you for having me.
And moving on now, on August the 9th, 22.1 million registered Kenyans will go to the polls to elect the country's fifth president and its successor to the incumbent Uhuru Kenyatta. Even though the focus is mostly on the high-profile presidential contest, across the 47 counties, the electorate will also cast votes for county governors, parliament representatives and other lower-level positions. However, there are fears of youth apathy as young citizens are particularly disenchanted and many have not bothered to register to vote.
East Africa's economic powerhouse is set to hold elections on Tuesday, the 9th of August, to select a new president, parliament, county governors and assemblies. President Uhuru Kenyatta will be stepping down after serving his constitutionally allowed 10 years. Many voters want change, frustrated by corruption and skyrocketing prices, but both frontliners vying to succeed Kenyatta have ties to him. Young citizens are particularly disenchanted, and many have not been bothered to register to vote. Those are Kenyans like 29-year-old Yakundi Walter, motorbike taxi driver, and his 30-year-old colleague Calvin Sokumu, who fall into a demographic courted by both camps.
That coming election, I'm not going to vote. Reason being, these are the same people we have been having all through these years. They give us promises, but at the end of the day, there's nothing getting fulfilled.
I don't see much representation, like mostly for us, the youth. We're just there to be youth and to be promised things that will never come to pass.
Walter and Okumu are part of Kenya's predominantly young population that makes up about 80% according to recent figures from the Electoral Commission. The number of registered voters aged 18 to 34 has dropped more than 5% since the 2017 election, despite population growth of about 12%.
When the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission was registering voters, they had a very, very difficult time meeting their targets in terms of registering voters. What was particularly noticeable was that young people were not registering in the numbers that were expected. So in an environment where people are very, very engaged with politics, when you see voter registration numbers falling, and the Electoral Commission unable to meet its targets after 1, 2, and even 3 attempts to do so, then that, I think, is an area of concern.
Both Walter and Okumu are more concerned about finding steady work. More than a tenth of Kenyans aged 18 to 64 are unemployed, and nearly 1 in 5 are out of the labor force, meaning they are not looking for work, according to the World Bank.
I think it's a very clear signal from the younger population that perhaps they're a little bit disenchanted with the direction that our politics has taken. They're perhaps not feeling as if the politics of the day is inclusive enough for them and doesn't necessarily address many of the issues that they would wish to see addressed. So I think it's a signal from the younger population, and one which needs to be taken seriously.
Endemic corruption has also angered voters. Both camps include officials charged with or even convicted of corruption.
Still ahead on the program. On our Africa Tech segment, we'll show you how a tech company in Rwanda is using renewable energy to bridge the digital gap on the continent. Please join us again. Thanks for staying with us. In a bid to ensure energy security in Kenya, a Chinese firm has built a large oil terminal in the country's Mombasa port, which has officially been put into operation. The project was funded by the Kenya Ports Authority and undertaken by the China Communications Construction Company. The construction of the 770-meter-long Kipevu oil terminal started in February 2019 and finished in January this year. As a major infrastructure project for Kenya, the oil terminal will largely enhance the energy transfer capacity of the Mombasa port and drive the economic development of the country and the East African region as a whole. Côte d'Ivoire's National Security Council says the 49 Ivorian soldiers arrested a month ago by Mali's transitional government are courageously enduring conditions in detention. Mali's junta has accused the Ivorians of being mercenaries coming to, in their words, destabilize the country. But Côte d'Ivoire says they were unjustly arrested, as the authorities knew well that the soldiers were there for legal and regular reasons as part of logistical support of the UN mission, MINUSMA. Ivorian embassy staff in Mali have met the 49 soldiers and later gave a statement saying they were in good spirits and had bravely endured the detention since the 10th of July. Togo has offered to mediate between the two countries for the release of the soldiers, but initial negotiations on the 28th of July in Lomé did not yield any progress. And now more than 5,000 people have attended a mass burial for 10 protesters killed during recent anti-UN demonstrations in the Democratic Republic of Congo. There is disagreement over who shot the protesters. Activists say MONUSCO peacekeepers were to blame, while MONUSCO accuses some demonstrators of snatching weapons from Congolese police and opening fire. Most of those killed at the protests were under the age of 30, the youngest an 11-year-old child. Those at the funeral have been holding up anti-UN banners demanding that its peacekeeping mission, MONUSCO, leaves the country. Protests erupted in Goma last week as civilians accused the peacekeepers of failing in its mission to combat armed groups. Meanwhile, the United Nations says there should be some preliminary information in the next couple of days concerning its investigation into what happened last Sunday, where civilians were killed in the Democratic Republic of Congo. Spokesperson for the UN gave more information about the UN envoy who was asked to leave the country, Matthias Gilman. Mr. Gilman is said to have not been in the country during the arrest, as he was on leave when his expulsion came in. On Thursday, the spokesperson for the Secretary General, Stefan Dujarric, expressed regret at the decision to request that the spokesperson of the UN peacekeeping mission depart the country.
We regret the decision of the government of the Democratic Republic of the Congo to request a member of the UN peacekeeping mission, MONUSCO, its spokesperson, to depart the country. In line with the status of the UN under the charter of the organization, any concerns that governments may have regarding the actions of a member of MONUSCO should be raised directly with the mission leadership. The mission and UN headquarters are accordingly engaging with the government to address this matter. Also, as you're aware, the Security Council met in close consultations this morning to discuss the situation in the DRC, and they were briefed by Jean-Pierre Lacroix, the head of the Peace Operations Department. We are conducting an investigation to what happened last Sunday, where civilians were clearly killed. We should have some, hopefully, preliminary information in the next couple of days. We are also very much in touch with the government and in touch with local communities to ensure that there's a very open and frank dialogue with them. The current situation between Armenia and Azerbaijan.
Rwanda says reports that UN Security Council experts have found solid evidence that the country is working with and supporting the M23 rebel group in the east of the Democratic Republic of Congo are false, unproven, and a tactic to distract from real issues. Their comments come hours after the DRC government spokesman, Patrick Muyaya, welcomed the work of the UN group, saying that the country hopes that conclusions would soon be reached to put an end to Rwanda's interference and bring back lasting peace. The Reuters news agency revealed on Thursday that the confidential report by UN experts found evidence that M23 fighters and Rwandan troops jointly attacked a large Congolese army base in Rumangabo in eastern North Kivu province on the 25th of May. Rwanda has repeatedly denied allegations it supports the M23 rebels. Kigali in turn accuses Kinshasa of shelling its territory. Life expectancy is rising in Africa, with people living nearly 10 years longer, from 46 years to 56 years. And that's according to the World Health Organization. The health agency says the rise is because of better access to health services in the continent, although the numbers are still well below the global average of 64 years. Life expectancy is the number of years on average a person is expected to live based on their age, gender, and country. WHO analysed life expectancy data from 47 African countries between 2000 and 2019, adding that the rise of life expectancy in Africa is greater than in any other region of the world, but warned the COVID pandemic could affect the gains. And welcome to our Africa Tech segment. A tech company in Rwanda is using renewable energy to bridge the digital gap in Africa. According to the CEO, Henry Nyakurundi, they are providing digital access for low-income people, and they're doing this through mobile smart solar-powered kiosks. The kiosks offer phone charging solutions and free Wi-Fi. Take a look.
This Rwandan entrepreneur, Henry Nyakurundi, is transforming how people charge phones in this country. Henry is the CEO of ARED, meaning African Renewable Energy Distributor, a tech firm using solar to bridge the digital divide in Africa through a mobile solar-powered kiosk called Shiriki Hubs.
Hard tech is hardware plus software built into one. If you look at the digital infrastructure space, internet, storage, computing, energy space, drone, EV, all this require hardware, some type of hardware. And unfortunately, when you look at all those innovations, they're dominated by foreign companies and not Africans. So there's massive, massive gap in I've seen innovators that are African that our government needs to solve by better promoting local innovators. Because if we don't start promoting local innovators with how young our population is in Africa, and the demand of employment is massive, then we're going to have huge problem in the future.
In many rural and semi-urban areas in Africa, it has now become easier to own a mobile phone, and even though connectivity has increased in some countries, having constant electricity and internet access is still a major problem. Henry sought to solve this digital divide by developing a mini server platform to store digital applications closer to the users and minimize the cost of the internet. The solar kiosk was then built to power the technology and also provide additional services such as phone charging to become a one-stop shop platform.
We have a GPS module on the mini server, so we know where all the solar kiosks are at any given time. And the mini server can work as a cluster, as a group. So actually, third-party developer can actually build application on top of our infrastructure, right? So it's just a way for us to use this infrastructure for more than just the basic phone charging, distribution of digital content. We also want to use that same infrastructure to solve the storage and computing infrastructure gap that exists in Africa. When you want to access YouTube, for example, that video you're accessing is stored in a server somewhere in Europe or in the US or somewhere else. So that information has to come all the way to your phone. But if you store that same video locally within your country, then the access cost is much cheaper. And that's one of the things we're trying to solve as a company.
But running a hard tech company like this isn't easy in Africa. Henry lists hardware, access to funding, and availability of key skill sets as part of the challenges they've had to deal with.
So we've had a lot of challenges developing this technology in this business. For example, on the hardware side, on the kiosk side, the kiosk we have today is our 4th generation kiosk, smart solar kiosk. So we also have challenges to solve that issue in Africa.
The solar-powered kiosk is a novel innovation using renewable energy to power its solution. The kiosk are powered by solar panels, provided phone charging solutions, and Wi-Fi.
And that's the program today. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Tenyola Shubowale. Have a lovely weekend.